Hey guys, Zach Gunter with the Gunter Collection. So today I want to do something a little bit different. We haven't really done a video like this yet where we're looking at multiple guitars, and I figured what better place to start than my favorite guitars, which are Flying Vs. So I've got a couple, actually 3 vintage ones and 1 brand new one on the end here. And what we're going to do is kind of compare, because the new one from Gibson is supposed to be like a 70s tribute or a 70s throwback, similar specs. So we're going to look at the real deal and compare it to the new ones. All right, so we're going to kick it off with this one. This is a 1979 all original Dean Flying V. And this was an eBay purchase for me. I have been looking for the right one for a long time. They're kind of hard to find. They don't pop up all the time. And this showed up and I just insta-bought it. And no regrets. I got a good price, and based on what the prices of these have been doing recently, I think I did very well. So it's all original. It's got the original super distortion pickups, which I love. They're a little bit lower output than the newer ones. So I guess depending on what you play, that could be a plus or minus. But for me, I think they sound super sweet. The neck pickup is just amazing for leads. It's got all the original hardware, the original Kluson Deluxe tuners, and you know, some 79 features. It's got the red side dot inlays. It's got the big headstock. This was Dean Zielinski's original design. I think they started shrinking that in the early 80s, and you know, the modern ones don't really look like this anymore. So yeah, that's about it for this one, man. It's a very light guitar. I think it's six and a quarter pounds. So it's probably like my lightest guitar now that I think about it. And it's very resonant, very loud acoustically. And it was in tune when I bought it. It also has some really cool aging to it. So you can tell somebody actually played this thing out, used but not abused. You know, no headstock breaks, no repairs or anything, but you can see some areas like where their arm kind of rubbed the nitro off, and I love that. I love the ones that have a little character to them. So cool piece, cool piece. All right, moving right along. So we've got a 1981 Gibson Flying V. Very similar finish, cherry finish, mahogany body, mahogany neck, rosewood fretboard on this one. And this thing is not all original. This one, I bought this about a month ago, and really the only original piece on it when I got it was the truss rod cover, I believe. Pick guard might be original, I can't really tell. It's definitely period correct, but I'm not sure if it's original, to be honest. So this one I had a little fun with. I love buying, you know, the older vintage guitars that someone else has already changed stuff on, because then I feel like I have kind of like a free license to just do whatever I want with it. Whereas, you know, if you buy an all original and you pay $8 grand or whatever for it, it's like, well, you know, you're the asshole if you swap the pickups out. But in this case, somebody else was the asshole. So I took advantage of that. I put the amber knobs on there because I just thought it looked cool with the cherry finish, you know, kind of like a Les Paul sort of thing. And the pickups that I put in here, this is an Arcane Mr. Scary. So it's the George Lynch pickup. I think it reads about 13.5K. And it's just a killer pickup. You know, it's like one of those kind of do-it-all pickups. Great for leads, great for rhythms, great for heavy music. And the neck is a 1981 or 82 Tim Shaw PAF, which those of you who know me, I'm on a PAF Tim Shaw kick recently. I have like 6 sets of those, and I just put them in everything. So really sweet sounding, you know, really good for leads, really good for cleans. This one, when I bought it, someone had already refretted it. They also leveled the fretboard. And I don't know who did the job, but they did a fantastic job. This is like one of the best playing guitars. It plays as if it's been plecked. It may have been plecked, I don't know. But it's also super lightweight, you know. It's a little heavier than the Dean. It's probably 6.5 pounds. But still got the same, you know, very loud acoustic thing going on. And yeah, you know, it's really in good shape. Never had a headstock repair, anything like that. It's definitely been played, definitely got buckle rash and, you know, some wear and tear here and there, but this is one of my favorite little pieces of wear. I love when the finish starts coming off the neck, you know, where it just shows the pattern where your hands were moving, which I think is super cool. You'll notice the 80s ones have this huge volute, which it's kind of funny because where they put it, it actually doesn't do hardly anything to protect your guitar from a headstock break, because the breaks always happen down here. They put the volute up there, but it is what it is. It's just one of those quirky pieces of Gibson history. And again, this one, it's got Gibson Deluxe tuners, but they're not original. They're just reproductions. So, you know, I think that's about it for this one. Oh, it does have the original ABR1. I forgot, I didn't even notice that, but that's good. Those things are pretty valuable nowadays. But yeah, this thing just super low action, super resonant. Oh, one thing I did revert back. So when it came to me, it had the incorrect strap pins. It just had like some, I don't know, Dunlop or whatever. And I happened to have a set of 81, I think they're called Posi Lock. So I put those back on there just because I think those look cool and they function super well also. All right, so next up we've got a 1975 Gibson Flying V. This is a special guitar. This is probably my favorite Flying V and definitely in my top 5 guitars ever. Little history lesson. So everybody knows about the 67 Flying Vs. You know, we've got tons of reissues of those. A lot of people don't know that they quit making in, I think it was 68, they stopped making Flying Vs, and they didn't officially start making them as like a production model again until 75. Now that's not to say they didn't make any. You could custom order one anytime in between there, but they weren't just sitting around at dealers and stuff until 75. So this was the first year that they came out with this, with, you know, the new headstock design and a few other tweaks. This one, this was a reverb purchase. I bought it from a collector out in California. As far as I know, it's spent its entire life in California, and it kind of shows because there's no checking in the finish. It is the original finish though, I have verified that. And it was just in fantastic shape. No breaks, no repairs, nothing like that. A little bit of buckle rash, a few scratches here and there, but you know, that's gonna happen in 40 years. So as far as the specs on this one, this was another one that when I got it, it had already been modified. So the guy, he had put 2 coil taps switches here, and he had put some 1981 Bill Lawrence 510L pickups. I had to try to remember that. They only made those pickups for that 1 year, and I think there was a reason they only did that. They kind of sucked in my opinion. So it looked cool, but to me it really didn't, it wasn't the sound I was trying to get anyway. So I swapped them out for EMGs. I went a little bit crazy, and I put the Hetfield pickup in the bridge, and I put a 66 up here for soloing. It also had 1981 Grovers on it when I got it, which those are cool, but I always like the look of the metal Klusons. So I was very fortunate, I can't remember if it was Reverb or eBay, but I was able to find a guy who had a new old stock set of these. He said they've been sitting in his tool chest for like 40 years. And so I bought those, put them on here. They work great. They look perfect. You know, they lined up and fit and everything. So, and let's see, it's got the original knobs, you know. One interesting quirk about this one though, so since I put EMGs, the problem was there was no room under here for the battery. And you know, this is not the kind of guitar you really want to route unless you have to. So the way that I wired it's a little bit funky. You've got a volume here and a volume here, and you have no tone. So this knob is actually just removable. And if you could zoom in under there, you'll see the battery peeking out. I put the battery where the tone pot would normally be. And but you know what, that knob stays on there and it looks stock and works for me. The way I figure it with EMGs, who's using the tone knob anyway, right? The other mods I did to this one, I had it refretted with jumbo stainless steel frets, and that was just out of necessity. When I got it, the frets were gone. I mean, they were totally shot. You couldn't even level and crown them. There's nothing left. So did that, had a bone nut put on, and that's about it. You know, that's, oh, and well, it had the original ABR one, but it was starting to sink in as they do. So this is a reproduction. I can't remember who made it, but it's some company in Germany. It's a pretty high-end reproduction. But this guitar is just fantastic. You know, it's growing up, I was a big Hetfield and Kirk Hammett fan, Metallica fan. So this is sort of like a combination of the best elements in my mind of each of their Flying Vs that they had back in the early days. That was kind of my vision with it. All right, last but not least, that brings us to the 2021 Gibson 70's Flying V. Now this particular one I got from the Gibson mod shop. The only mod that they did though was they put white knobs on it. I kind of ran with that theme, put a white switch tip, pickup rings and pickup covers on it, but other than that, it's stock. It's still got the stock pickups, the 70's tribute pickups, you know, all the hardware and whatnot is still as it would be off the shelf. My first impression of this guitar, you know, after having a real 70's and 80's, and I've had a few of them as well. So my first impression was, this is really nothing like a 70's guitar. I mean, I think the only thing that it really has in common is the way that the neck is mounted. And even that, the angle or whatever is like not exactly the same as that one. Obviously the headstock is very different shape. You know, if you look at that side by side, it's like not even close. The pickups don't sound anything like original pickups. I think they're a variation of burst buckers actually. That being said though, they are my favorite variation of burst buckers I've tried so far. They just have a really cool distortion to them. I love the way they sound. You know, they did the binding on the neck. That was a nice touch, kind of like this one has. And aside from that though, there's really nothing in common. I mean, there's no volute back here. The neck profile is really nothing like a 70's or an 80's. Ironically, this neck profile probably has more in common with the Dean than it does with the other Gibsons. Although it's a little bit more of a C shape. That one's more of maybe a D shape. Okay, so, you know, that was my initial thoughts when I got it was, okay, they kind of dropped the ball here. Like they call it the 70's V and it really doesn't have anything in common with them. And I still think that's true. However, it's a great flying V. It hangs with these other ones that are 2-3 times as expensive, you know, the old vintage stuff. It's just its own thing. And if you look at it that way, I think people that buy these will be very happy with them because for I think they just raised the prices, but it's like $2,200 or something. It's still a good deal, man. I mean, it's still the best modern Gibson V that I've played outside of maybe like a custom shop or you know, the Les Paul custom style ones. But it sounds great. It's still loud acoustically, you know, still has good sustain to it. It's not as loud as these older ones, but I think that probably has a lot to do with just older wood resonates a little bit better. And lastly, one of the biggest differences is the weight of the guitar. These are a good bit heavier than the old ones. I haven't put it on a scale, but I would guess this is probably 7.5 pounds, maybe more. So it's at least a pound heavier than the vintage ones. And you know, I think that the dimensions of the body are still the same though, so that means that it must be just a denser piece of mahogany. Probably part of the reason why it doesn't have quite as much resonation, quite as much sustain. I found that the lighter ones just seem to ring out a little bit better. So, but yeah, that's pretty much wraps it up for this one. So, like I said, you know, if you're in the market for one of these, if you're expecting it to be just like a clone of this is probably not the guitar for you. If you're just looking for a kick-ass Flying V that looks cool, plays good, and sounds great for a decent price, I think you can't go wrong with one of these. So we're going to plug these in now. We're going to kind of A/B them and see how the new guy stacks up sonically.
Bye.